A good suspension makes a smooth ride. And today we'll be looking at exactly how to achieve that. So for suspension, to get started, you want to go to your mobility tab, tracks, and then to the suspension tab down below here. Here you get the option between four suspensions. You got the big torsion bar suspension, the smart torsion bar suspension, the big bogies, and the small bogies. And each of them has a few own characteristics that you have to keep in mind, and overall the strategies to when you go both of them. So the bogey ones are probably the hardest to get used to, because bogies do not have any adjustment settings in of the suspension itself. It only has a raw torque value, which has to be higher than the specific weight value in order for the suspension to work. If for whatever reason your build has a higher specific weight than torque, you cannot use bogies because bogies have no way of increasing their torque amount. So what you can do, however, is adjust the height value. If you adjust it all the way down, you get the maximum amount of space that you can use for your suspension. You can see here, I can actually mostly carry my weight with this tank. I will not be able to move because I'm lacking a driver's viewport, but at least I can carry its weight, even though it's kind of front heavy. To adjust the front heaviness, you can either make it so that we have another bogey maybe if by down or upscaling these wheels. What we could also do is increase the spacing right here, right until the value right before this one would disappear. That way, the balance of the tank is improved. That way, that's the main way of balancing out a tank when the suspension is somewhat off balance. You don't necessarily want to increase the wheels, you just want to get a spacing in between. However, let's say you have a whole bunch of wheels like here, and you can't get like even with an even spacing like this, it will still be a bit front heavy or rear heavy. How do you do that? So if you go to the per axle or per group settings here, if you increase the amount per group and you increase the group spacing instead, you might notice that I'm gonna have two groups of two instead of whatever we had before. While I was to having a separate gap in between, and then if we decrease the group spacing, we could even maybe get a third group in here. So we have 2, 2, and 1, giving us a balanced setup right here. So for torsion bars, it's a much different story. The height slider right here, while it does lower their height and debuild a little bit, actually has a whole suspension setting here in the settings right here. You might notice that right now, the specific weight is higher than my amount of torque. To increase the torque for torsion bars, you want to decrease the length and increase the width or diameter. And this can lead to insane carrying capacities, as such as you can see here. So often you don't even need that much. And you can save a lot of size internal space, well, decreasing it. Of course, it will still bounce around a lot, and that we can improve by increasing the rest angle right up here. So that's how you increase the height for the torsion bar suspension. And that's most of the basics here. So for the torsion bar, there's a lot more settings to play with. So basically, the the longer the length of the torsion bar, the more travel there is, meaning that the ride will be more balanced when driving over rough terrain, but it will take up more space internally. And whenever you want to increase the length by a little bit, you'll decrease the torque, so you have to increase the diameter also by quite a margin. So, of course, the most smooth ride would theoretically be like a very long, very high diameter torsion bar. But of course, not all builds have space for that. The damper value works for both. Decreasing the damper value will mean that there's going to be more travel in the suspension, which means that the build can rock up and down more, meaning that even though there's going to be less strain on the suspension here, your build might actually be rocking so much that there's a difference in grip between the tracks or front and back of the track, and that can lead to the driver shifting up or down. If you notice reared gear shifting behavior where the driver is just switching between gears at a certain speed, It might be because you don't have the right amount of dampening. It can be either too much or too little. Adjusting the amount of dampening can adjust the how much the suspension actually wants to travel. So changing that can again help with overall suspension build. Good suspension is the difference between a build that can fire on the move and a build that cannot fire on the move. So getting your suspension right is very much important. It will give you many advantages in the battlefield. That said, that's all I got for today. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys all on the next one.